Good evening and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. Tonight we are soliciting questions and comments from you via Twitter at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. My name is John Ruark. I'm your host, and I am a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And I will introduce Juan Sepulveda.
Good evening, brothers. My name is Juan Sepulveda. I am a member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Thank you, Juan. Moving on to Nick Johnson.
Hey, it's Nick Johnson, past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time Farmington. That's about it.
Thank you, Nick. Jason Richards.
Thanks, John. My name is Jason Richards. I'm the Junior Warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. And last, but certainly not least, our honored special guest tonight, Worshipful Anthony Mongelli from LaGuardia Lodge number 1130 up in the Beholden under the Grand Lodge of New York. So welcome, Worshipful, and any introductory things you want to say?
Thank you, brothers. Firstly, I'm honored to be with you all tonight, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity. And as you noted, John, I'm the sitting master of LaGuardia Lodge number 1130 in Staten Island, New York, which is under the Grand Lodge of New York. The author of the Craftsman Symbology, the first book, which has been out, I guess, for about a year and a half now. It seems to be doing sort of well. And others are in progress. We'll leave it at that. In terms of timelines, I will not offer any, but I'll say only that others are in progress. Thank you, brothers.
Certainly.
You're like George R.R. Martin. You'll get around to him when you get around to him.
It's a life's work. It's a life's work. So
as long as there are dragons, I'm happy.
Yes, cannot wait for the
Amen.
HBO series. Oh, man.
So today I learned Nick Johnson is a Game of Thrones fan. All right.
cheers.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Switching into Masonic news, I hope everyone had a fantastic day on for Martin Luther King's birthday, which was yesterday, as according to our live recording. And the first item of note is that in D.C., the Prince Hall and Grand Lodge of Masons in California. It was not in D.C. It was in California.
It was in Stockton, California.
Thank you. I don't know what I was thinking. They had a march to honor almost Brother King. So let's talk about that. There's a picture there of the brethren in their regalia. And Jason, why don't you tell us about Dr. King and his Freemasonry connection?
Well, you know, it was interesting because we posted up a picture honoring Dr. King on the Masonic Roundtable yesterday for the great work he did in bringing this country together. And did a little bit of research to find out that he was actually had every intention of being made a Mason, and actually plans were in the works for him to get the degrees back when he returned home, and I believe it was '68. However, he was assassinated before he could actually get home and get those degrees. So I believe in 1999. And there's some speculation as to how this all went down. Apparently, in 1999, Prince Hall, the Grand Master of Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Georgia, issued an edict to confer honorary membership on Dr. King. It was either honorary membership or posthumously make him a Mason at sight. However, different sources have said different things. So I think we can just leave it at the fact that Dr. King obviously shared a lot of the same values that we as Masons hold very dear, and had he been able to live out his life in full, I think we may have actually seen him join our ranks, which is pretty neat.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. So that was certainly a sad day anyway, and it was a good thing to remember and celebrate the life of Dr. King. Moving on to our next topic, which is a new scam discovered under the Grand Lodge of Scotland. They finally got their website back up and running after we crashed it with the Robert Burns. So they have a new event or new piece of news that basically talks about an unsolicited contact with Scottish lodges. Jason, will you also cover this?
Yes, absolutely. So the Grand Lodge of Scotland got wind that some of their members holding under the Grand Lodge of Scotland had been contacted by an individual claiming to be a museum curator under the Grand Lodge of Spain. And this individual was asking for Masonic artifacts from their lodges to put into his Masonic museum in Madrid. And actually, one or several of these lodges actually ended up sending this individual Masonic artifacts that are probably now lost forever. So the Grand Lodge of Scotland contacted the Grand Lodge of Spain, and the Grand Lodge of Spain disavowed any knowledge. So just remember, guys, be careful. If someone's claiming to be a Mason, go with the trust but verify approach. We have ways we have legal Masonic information for a reason, and just make sure you use it so that you don't end up thinking you're contributing to a good cause, which is just some way to wrong, cheat, and defraud. We should probably stop Masonic news and allow Robert Johnson to introduce himself.
Oh, hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome.
Who are you?
Cool. Robert Johnson, host of Whence Came You podcast, and master of Waukegan 78. Thanks.
All right.
Hello,
Two masters.
I don't know if we can do a show with two sitting worshipful masters. It's
that'd
getting
be
cramped
weird.
in here.
Let's
Yeah.
see, two sitting masters, two past masters.
Egos.
Worshipful.
Doctor, glad I'm not sick. Hey, we got more Masonic news. Why don't you talk about it, John?
Yeah, actually, one thing I wanted to add about the scam to the Grand Lodge of Scotland. This is not the first nor the last round of scams that I've heard of that definitely target Masons, and I think that is because Masons in general are charitable, are hospitable, think of others, and so can quickly fall prey to any kind of outreach to help those less fortunate. So definitely, again, as Jason said, trust but verify. And another thing I wanted to mention was our greatest source of information, the Freemasons for Dummies blog, where yet again another temple has been sold. This is the New Orleans Scottish Rite Temple in, where else? New Orleans. Was sold for about 3.5. Oh, sold to a local developer for $3.25 million. It was listed as $4 million, but sold for $3.25 million last month, ending the Freemasons' 110 years of ownership. Beautiful building. I mean, gosh, the thing that bothers me about all these is that I wish that there were some sort of national, federation of basically Blue Lodge or Scottish Rite or any kind of coalition of people that are willing to invest to kind of save these buildings before they just go right up on the auction block. What do you guys think about that?
Well, it's funny that you mention that because right now, no, I'm kidding.
Right now, I'm buying the New Orleans Scottish Rite Temple.
Fine, you guys didn't know. That's why I was late.
Here's my check. It's actually interesting. I have a little anecdote. The company that I work for, as I mentioned before we went live, is a conglomerate. One of the things they do is real estate development, and the owner of the company, I guess about 3 months ago, had said, knowing that I'm a Mason, came to me and said, "I've been reading these articles about Masonic temples up for sale. Do you have any angles? Can we pick one up? As in, can we pick one up and go condo?" Which I thought was very funny. So, giving this bit of news, it just kind of brought me back to that strange memory.
Well, what are your thoughts? Is that acceptable or is that heartbreaking?
To me, it's heartbreaking. I mean, you kind of build up, apart from the physical structure itself, really, it's more, if you subscribe to this sort of thing, these sort of egregore kind of that you build up there. So to me, I guess that's truly the heartbreaking part of it. There's just so much history attached to that location. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the things that we kind of do at a local lodge level, at least at Acacia, is we have the Acacia Foundation, which is almost a historical society. And Robert left us. Oh, he's back. A historical society dedicated to the upkeep of the building and preserving the history of the building. It's a National Historic building and landmark in Clifton. And if there was some way that we could either by Grand Lodge or as a coalition of Grand Lodges, set up some sort of historical society to take these older buildings, preserve them, and make them public museums, I think this would be an amazing thing that we could do.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
But coalition of the willing.
Right. So, where I am right now, I'm in the Jack Stewart Library at Waukegan, and across the street from us is our original building that we lost because it's this huge grandeur building that we built, and we built it in 1921. It sat in some lady's possession for years. She didn't do anything with it. Somebody just bought it for $6.5 million, and it's just sitting there, and it's rotting. You can walk up to the doors, and you can look through the windows, and you just see the marble floors under this thick, like 1.5 inches of dust, and we can't do anything with it because Waukegan has they can't do anything with it, I should say, because Waukegan is a township and a city, has it under historical protection. But if we could do something and get it going, it's right across from a Carnegie Library too.
Wow.
Ooh.
Which is also, by the way, completely amazing on the outside. Looking in, it's full of junk. I don't know what the story is. It's like, it's a Carnegie Library. What are you doing?
Wow.
But it's a sad story.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody reads books on Kindle these days, Robert.
What's a library?
You don't even get it. No, yeah, I know.
Juan, Nick, you guys have been quiet. What are you thinking?
I think this would make a really good show idea. Whoa. But my initial thoughts are, I usually get a little bit bummed out when these buildings go away.
Okay.
I've been fortunate. One of the most beautiful buildings in Minnesota is the Minneapolis Valley of Scottish, old Methodist church, and it's just lovely. The walls, it's built acoustically so everyone can hear, and it's just amazing to do degree work in there. And so you're right. I mean, it's almost as if the spirit of all the brothers becomes a part of the walls of that building. And so, it's one of those that it's kind of sad when you can think about that the spirit of brothers of almost a century still line the walls and still exist within the plaster. And so it's just kind of sad, but at the same time, when they get repurposed, it's kind of interesting what happens when they do that, when the public buys them. So, I mean, it's one of those, we can't afford them. So,
Juan?
Yep. Here are my thoughts on this. What we're witnessing is the result of a chain reaction that dates back for decades. That's why I consider that it's so important for us to really focus on making sure that the whole Masonic experience, for the initiate all the way through to the most senior of the brothers, is one that's fulfilling, that they want to be a part of, be active members. It all, yes, our membership continues to, or has been declining for decades, and from a numbers and cents point of view, it's inevitable that this will continue to happen until we are able to reverse the trend and fill our lodges and make sure that people are really contributing. That's why I encourage the brothers that are out there that see this kind of news and they feel, oh man, why aren't we saving them? this is something that whenever you are put in a position of leadership or contribution to your lodge, do it to the best of your ability. Because if you're playing your part, other brothers are playing their part, and then we're all contributing to bring these lodges back to life. If we might be able to have a surplus to then contribute to these buildings that are decaying or have to be taken out of our hands. So, don't sit and wait for someone to do something about this. On every responsibility that you have as a brother, do it to the best of your ability, because that's your contribution to saving these buildings.
Well said.
It's quality over quantity, too. You can't do everything, but what you do decide to do it well.
Yep. Like I say, do it as if for the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we'll have to channel our inner Tom Acousti and say, okay, let's look for corporate sponsorships of lodge buildings. The Waukegan McDonald's Masonic Temple.
Yeah. That's across the street, so just in case, you don't like Little Caesar's Pizza, you can go over there and grab I think they have a triple quarter pounder now, which is great because it's 3 patties.
Nice.
So that's a conspiracy.
How do you go wrong with
It's like 3 degrees.
Yeah, would you like? I'm coming for you. Would you like fries with your enlightenment? All right.
Yes, I would. So I just wanted to share too really quickly. I got a Facebook invite 2 days ago for a lodge that was having their very last meeting in a building.
Oh.
I mean, I can't remember where it was offhand, and I apologize to the guy who sent it to me. But I immediately just felt like bummer.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a loss. I mean, it really is. And when you go through psychologically a loss, you go through the same symptoms that you do through death, because death is a loss, right? And so there are the 5 stages of grief that you go through, and I can imagine any brother that's emotionally and spiritually attached to these buildings, they're going to go through those cycles, and so it's hard. It's hard for those men. It's hard for those Masons. It's hard for the fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
Moving to a better topic,
okay,
not so sad, is Masonic Week. That is also right around the corner for those traveling in the northeastern area. Jason and I will be hanging out at the 2015 Masonic Week in Reston, Virginia, right around the corner from us. And there's a very full event. If you don't know, go to yorkwright.com/Masonic Week and check out the schedule.
And make sure you say hi to John and Jason and bug them.
Please do.
Bug them a lot.
Yeah, we'll give you RJ's phone number.
That's cool, man. Somebody already tweeted my business card to the world.
Oh, nice.
I was a little nervous, but nobody's called me yet, so can't be that important.
So yeah, I'll definitely be there on Saturday. I think that might be the only day of the week that I'm going to be able to get there just because of work obligations. But I'll try to be there most of the day on Saturday hanging out. Yeah, John will be there a little bit later on Saturday because he has to go talk about TMR to some research lodge.
That's right.
Ooh.
So late breaking news. I was planning on being there all day Saturday, but for those in the area, at the A. Douglas Smith Lodge of Research, we'll be meeting at the George Washington Masonic Memorial that morning, and I've been asked to present this show. So if you want to come and say hi, that's where I'll be. If not, I'll see you at Masonic Week. Alrighty, and
They had a hammer for me, okay?
yeah, and then last but not least, the week after next. No, this Saturday.
No, this
Holy
weekend.
smokes! I get to have haggis soon. That will be at the Kite and Key Lodge up in Bethlehem. They will have their Burns supper, which we talked about last week. Learned a lot about Robert Burns, and hope to see you there. Anything you want to add about that, Jason, since you'll be there?
It'll be awesome. I am so looking forward to haggis. And reading poems about haggis and just
There's
loving
something
haggis.
so wrong. There's something so wrong about you, Jason, right now. Nobody looks forward to haggis, bro.
Alrighty. Moving to our next segment. Nick Johnson, will you read us our MMQ-OT, our Masonic Monday question on Tuesday?
Thank you very much, John. Yes, I would love to give the answer from last week's Masonic Monday question on Tuesday, and I will also provide the newest question for the week of January 19th, 2015.
And
So
the
your
TMR
question,
winner.
and the TMR winner. Yes, we're gonna give you the greatest gift that you have ever received. Me saying your name on the interwebs. You are welcome in advance. Alright, so last week's question was, from what two cities conquered by King David did the bronze used for the pillars of King Solomon's temple come? And the bonus question was, what was the name of the fallen leader? And yes, I did use a trick question for the bonus one to throw people off. I'm a bad, bad man, and you can hate me. But anyway, the answer to that was from 1 Chronicles 18:8, which says, from Tibhath and from Kun, cities of Hadadezer, David took a vast quantity of bronze. With it, Solomon made the bronze sea and the pillars and the vessels of bronze. And so the answer to last week's question was the cities of Tibhath and Kun, and the conquered leader was Hadadezer. Hadadezer, there we go. And there you go.
So who got that right?
We had only a single person who got it right because most people chose a 2 Samuel or a 1 Kings passage. And so the only TMR viewer that we had was Gerald Brown of Lafayette Lodge, number 543, Grand Lodge of Tennessee.
All
But
right.
that's okay. We had some fantastic responses, and Gerald, I'm going to be sending you something really great. My regards. So proud of you. All right, so this week's question is, what was the name and number of the first lodge founded in Hawaii? And what was the chartering grand body? Your bonus question is, curiously, it was constituted through a single individual. What was his name? What was his Masonic rank within his degree system? And where was the lodge constituted? Send your answer to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name and number. And also, if you wouldn't mind, include the hashtag TMMR or MMQTMR. And that
Or
will help
TMR
me.
MMQ.
Either one, I'm good, or even just hashtag TMR. I will figure it out.
Pick one. Pick one. If they don't put the correct hashtag, they get disqualified.
You fail.
All right. Hashtag TMMR. TMR.
There we
go. Some sequence of letters that you put together and put them in your email. You're welcome.
Now, Nick,
You're done talking.
Given that that's a multi-part question, what's up for grabs there? Anything more than your regards, or?
You'll get a thumbs up.
How about 2 thumbs up?
Not 2, just 1. I'm in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's our passive-aggressive way.
Alrighty. So there you go. Without further ado, let's move into this week's topic, which I am very honored and proud to introduce. A follow-up to our Masonic Research show, which we spent our first episode talking about the empirical or the philosophical side of Masonic research. And we were reaching out to Brother Worshipful Anthony Mongelli to talk about a current trend that's going on Facebook right now regarding the amount of scholarly, academic, citing research versus experiential and opinion-based research. So I will let our honored guest kind of give a quick overview of the landscape as he sees it, and we'll start going into some of the pros and cons of each. So without further ado, Worshipful Mongelli.
Thank you, brother. As you noted, there is quite a lot of activity lately, and I suppose I'd say it's maybe in the past 4 or 5 months that we've seen a lot of activity on Facebook with respect to scholarship versus opinion when it comes to Masonic writing, Masonic research and Masonic writing. I'm sure that this is also the topic of private conversations. Maybe it's also going on in other social media venues, but surely anybody that's been paying attention has sort of seen that this has become sort of a hot topic, at least on Facebook. And, I think at the outset, let's make a distinction. There's nothing wrong with offering opinion with respect to any topic in Freemasonry, any esoteric topic or any topic whatsoever, in point of fact. However, one thing I think that is absolutely vital is that we make certain prefatory comments before doing that. We need to clearly establish that what is being offered is a personal view. It's experiential, it's philosophical, it's of a subjective nature. These are my musings. This is what I think. And insofar as that prefatory work is done at the outset, I say bring on the opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that we begin to run into problems when statements are made without the benefit of substantiation. Whether that substantiation comes in the form of, hey, I've been digging around in these records, I've been digging through these papers, hopefully all of these things are peer-reviewed, and I think we'll have the opportunity to discuss what that means. This is what I've put together, and this is here. I'm offering you this, I put this together. Or, if we were talking about some kind of a science, if I was doing lab work, and as a result of my own experimentation, and this is empirical, I'm writing up my results and offering, these are my results. These results can be duplicated by someone else. And every time a successful duplication occurs, it adds further weight to the fact that I might be correct. Now, if duplication offers differing results, if duplication completely shoots down what I've put forth, then I need to acknowledge the fact that what I've put forth initially may be flawed in some way. We need to be very clear on what the purpose is. What are we offering and what's the purpose behind it? If it's an ego trip, and if it's born purely of vanity, then what will happen is we will shy away from peer review. We will shy away from criticism and commentary that could be negative and that could cast what we've done in a negative light. But if we're putting forth something because we believe we are contributing to this sort of nebulous phrase, if you will, Masonic light, and light cannot be divorced from truth. Masonic light is many things, but it's truth at its most basic. If we're contributing to that, then we must not be afraid of having what we've said or offered corrected. Therein comes in the peer review process. Maybe there's an ego wounded, maybe your pride is a little wounded, but you say, this isn't here for my own glory or my own gain, but rather so that I am making a contribution to the body of knowledge. And we want to be as exact as we possibly can when we add to that body of knowledge.
So let me
yes.
So let me just go off and say that I'm going to use your own words against you literally and say that using a case study of your book, and I'm honored to say that I've purchased and read the Selected Symbols of the Entered Apprentice Degree. Very influential, awesome book, and anyone who's an Entered Apprentice or above should definitely read it to understand the true meaning behind a lot of these symbols. But using your book as well as the Alchemical Keys to Masonic Ritual, I like, as I was reading it, how both you and Brother Tim Hogan took the time to clearly articulate and cite your sources and clearly mention, as you said, when something is going off of an assumption or a judgment based on those sources, and that you were creating kind of new value by synthesizing these sources. So I want to ask you, how was the process of writing your first book there, and how did that influence your style of research?
I guess the way I'd answer that, Brother John, is that first book is the product of several years of sort of meandering research. It wasn't, I didn't sit down and say, I'm writing a book. And that happens sometimes, but I didn't do that. Now, the second volume and third volume, these are more products of will. The first volume has been very successful, and I'm following that pattern to produce others. The first one, though, came about as the distillation of several years, as I said, of just kind of reading far and wide. I guess I researched in a fashion that would be befitting sort of the preparation of a scientific paper, because I have training in that vein. In my former life, and I guess while I'm not that old, I'm not going to throw out exactly how many years ago that was. If somebody bothers to research these papers, you could certainly figure that out. I was very involved in vertebrate paleontology, so a hard science, and you cannot get into that type of science without being very familiar with the literature of that type of science. So immediately you're exposed to a great body of peer-reviewed work. And right off the bat, that's sort of your springboard. So I was used to recording little summations or a sentence here and there from a paper I had read along with the citation, so that I could then take that and add it to my own work with, of course, the proper citation. So I was trained in that fashion, and as I took notes through everything that I read, I kind of took notes in that way, which made it much easier and much less a devilish task to cite those references properly when I actually distilled all this together in the book. So again, it's a couple of years of meandering reading, and then I sort of looked at all of these notes and thought that I could distill this into something more manageable. But even then, the idea of publication was not first and foremost in mind. After a few drafts, I thought, this probably should be a book. Now let's talk briefly. We can take a little aside into self-publication versus seeking out a publishing house. The idea of gain was not on my radar at all, when I put this together. It was, I think this is valuable. As you noted, Brother John, it is a synthesis. It's almost as if, in that book I cite 160 sources, probably use more like 200 or 250. It was distilling everything, and it's sort of doing the work for you, if you will. So what I had to go through far and wide in going through all of those various sources has been distilled in this single volume, and my opinion, my interpretations are offered there. But as you noted, I took great pains to say this may mean, this may signify, and words of similar phrasing to indicate that this is a possibility. I think that the interpretation of symbolism is a rather personal journey. It is colored by your own experience, but we have to throw out a caveat by saying that we cannot ascribe any meaning we want to Masonic symbolism. Whomever put those symbols there did so with a definite intent and with the hope of conveying a particular message. So while there is some latitude, we can't, be completely dissolve the boundaries. Again, I thought I took pains to say to really separate opinion from what was coming from elsewhere, and that's again, that's very important. So the reason that I went the self-publication route is because you go to a publishing house, at least this was my thinking at the time, they want something that's commercially viable, right? They're laying out money to print it, for marketing, for editing and other services, etc. And I thought right at the outset from Jump Street it could be, for lack of a better term, an unhappy marriage, because my head was nowhere near profit or gain or this needs to be commercially viable. So I think the greatest challenge for me was, okay, I'm doing this without an editor. I need to go through this book time and again, and I probably read and reread and reread the book 20 times in the course of the month previous to publication, and had 11 other Masons read the book as well, looking for typos, problems with grammar, things that didn't flow, etc. And even after that rigor, there are, I believe, 2 spelling errors in there. And then after that, it was, let's get it into, I used Lulu.com, CreateSpace is another. And that's the story of how the book came about. But I avoided that time around going to a publisher where you would have had the benefit, let's say, of professional editing, again, purely because I thought that our goals would have been different, since I had no interest in really the business aspect of that.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate you kind of defining the groundwork of how you
Sure.
you reached that area of publishing and your process to get to that. So I'll open it up to the other panelists here to see if they had any questions for you, particularly about your book or in general about the topic at hand.
Yeah, Brother Anthony, as you speak about your process of creating the book, you touched on several subjects that I wish we could delve deeper into, but one of them is the fluidity of the research. One of my main concerns as I gather material and resources for the book that I will publish in 10 years or 20. My main concern is the fluidity of the creation. I'm used to having an idea with my paintings, documenting the idea as a rough sketch, and then I go and do research as to the components that will make part of the painting. However, I'm very familiar with that process, but when it comes to writing, I find it a little bit clumsy, perhaps is the word, where if I'm writing and I know I need to find the source for something, or if I am adding to my draft, I know that it needs to be better explained where I found that information. What advice would you have, or what worked for you in order for you to continue your creativity and fluidity of the writing alongside the substantiation with the material?
Well, here's why. It's an excellent question, brother. And your question, the answer I'll give you to the question will illustrate, I think, the importance of citation in any work that aspires to be even pseudo-scholarly, whether it's in Masonry or anything else. Let's, for example, say that I had come across a book that had some material on the point within a circle. Without question, that book is going to be, if I'm using that material, it would be cited, it would be one of my references. But equally important is, what are the references in that book? Because then I'm able to go to those references and read those papers or read those books. And that's why it was absolutely critical. So if you look at one of the things that I did with my book, you may open it up and start researching the point within a circle. If you go through that chapter, I used in the book what's known as APA style. So it uses something called in-text citation. So you'd have a particular statement, blah, 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 R.J. Johnson, 2013. And when you flip to the back of the book, you know exactly where that came from, the date of publication, who published it, the author, etc. You can then go to that paper or book, and you can pick up that trail. Now, if the particular work you're ending up in cited in the same fashion, or at least provided a bibliography or a work cited, you can go into those references, and it's this, you can go down many, 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 many levels and constantly sort of increase your tree, if you will, of references and information. You know, that I think that that's absolutely key. And one of the ways that I work, and maybe it's a little unorthodox, I don't know, what I ended up doing was I had all of these notes and references. So I like to work in paper. I type. I mean, when I'm sitting down and I'm actually working on the manuscript, I'm typing. When I'm taking notes, I'm doing it by hand. When I'm arranging those notes, basically what I'm doing is, and this may sound a little bit ridiculous, but it worked for me, I'm actually cutting out the references. And okay, this is the circumpunct. And I'm dropping these things on the floor. And I'm gathering these things together, almost in a container, if you will. Kind of similar, I think there's a process called a mind dump. Well, this was sort of a notebook dump. And now I've got all this information. How does this work with this? How does this, what light does this cast this in? And that might be a further note, etc. So it's a very active, at least for me, I'm sure others work in different fashions, but it's a very creative, active process. And that in and of itself leads to different insights. Well, what about this? Can I find any substantiation for this? Or maybe an interpretation comes along, which of course will be couched as an interpretation, a personal interpretation in the book. And that's sort of the process that I followed. And I found it to be very fluid. I don't know, the only blocks I experienced in truth were those in writing. I can't necessarily say I was terribly thrown off a research trail, you know, and spun my wheels for any length of time. It was really the writing blocks, I guess, that I suffered from. But the research kind of was sort of fluid in that respect.
Good. All right, I'll ask Nick or Robert, the brothers Johnson, to see if they had anything they wanted to ask.
Well, I had a question that I was going to ask you, and you kind of touched on it when you talked about a tree of resources and sources and such. So many times I'll read an article in any magazine or whatever it could be, and I will find that the list of sources is the length of the article. Sometimes I find that it's I don't want to say it's overkill, right? Because I respect that person is showing me where they got all the information from. And only recently, when I sent a paper out for peer review, and that was the main thing that I got back. And people really want I might not love sources, but people who are reading the things that we write want sources, so they are important. That was the only thing I was going to touch on, which was what you did talk about.
Yeah, they're important, Brother Johnson. I mean, and you have to remember why do we need the citations in the first place? So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, if I was doing some sort of laboratory experiment, I would publish my results in a paper or a book. I don't need to cite anything because those are my own results. They're self-generated. However, if I'm including a statement in my paper, so for example, in the chapter on the circumpunct in my book, I mention and I offer this as possible. Again, there's that qualification. If you look at a solar halo, which is formed from ice crystals, you actually get a ring around a central point, and one cannot deny that it looks entirely like the circumpunct. Now, is it possible that that observation is what led perhaps to the ancient Egyptians, for example, adopting as the glyph of the sun the circumpunct? It's possible. Do I have that as a fact? Absolutely not. So I couch it as it is possible. I offer this as possible. But the whole statement about solar halos are caused by the particular orientation of hexagonal ice crystals in the upper atmosphere. Well, that's not me. I didn't pull that out of a lab somewhere. I didn't test that. That came from author such and such. And I give that, there you go. And I give that citation plainly because I think that the reader should know that's not me. I didn't do that. It's not my work. But they should be able to trace that back to the paper or book it came from and read that for themselves. That's why that's vital. So anything that is not born of you, be it opinion or be it your own experimentation or your own experience, should be cited because chances are it came from elsewhere, with the exception of things that are completely mundane. Example, the sky is blue. I don't think I need to cite somebody else's research to say the sky is blue. Clouds are generally white, things of that nature that are just so obvious and so ridiculous on their face. But if it's coming from elsewhere, you should always state where that came from. Again, barring experiential information, experimentation, that kind of thing. It's definitely come from somewhere. You should take the trouble to indicate where.
Okay. Jason, is there anything they're saying on social media regarding the topic?
Regarding the topic tonight, actually, it's been really, really quiet. However, one thing that I wanted to mention, we've talked a lot about scholarship and the importance of citing sources and the importance of letting your reader know where your information is coming from. And I want people to know that the analysis of those sources and the opinions that are drawn from those sources are equally important. We're very big into scholarship and historical research. However, if you have all source citations, it's an encyclopedia. It's not an actual living, breathing contribution to the body of literature. So I want to let our listeners know that those opinions are just as important as the sources that you get that information to base those opinions off of from. And I think that's something that needed to be stated.
Yeah, and I would I would agree with that because at the end of the day, Masonry is very much also about practice, right? It's about a particular mode of living, or it's about what you seek to do, despite what you believe that may be. There are various interpretations. One of the things I wanted to do in pulling all this information together about any given symbol was to enhance the reader's interpretation and the reader's own interpretation of that symbol or emblem, because now they have this comparative basis upon which to think on. It meant this here, that here, this to this person, this to this culture, etc. But now the synthesis occurs in your own mind. So I think that's a very excellent point to bring forward.
Great.
Well, and I kind of wanted to point out something that you were saying earlier, and I've noticed something that kind of drives me up a wall, and it's because I read law review articles and stuff like that, and you can kind of tell is that there's this strange obsession to oversight, where they feel like there's a need to, well, I better add another citation, I better add more support, and at some point, all of a sudden a article that could have been condensed to about 5 paragraphs all of a sudden is turned into like a 3-page paper because it's just excessively cited things that no one is going to look at because there's no need to. And I think that's the problem, is that a lot of would-be scholars are so concerned about the weight and strength of any argument that they're making that they kind of just they go overboard. And I think there has to be some kind of balance between both citation, as a means for gaining further insight, but also not to be overly redundant, which, I mean, if you do, you can see it throughout so many Masonic research magazines, and it kind of drives me up a wall. So.
Yep.
That's a good point, brother. And I think that in certain instances, certain concepts in the book, I think I probably used no more than 3 was sort of my maximum. So, for example, if you have a particular concept, you might cite A, B, and C, and they're presented, let's say, in different ways across different times. One of the interesting points about multiple citations for me is that, remember, we're dealing with a corpus that is hundreds of years old. It's interesting to be able to walk through multiple citations that are separated by 50 or 75 or 100 years and find the same concept still put forth. So it displays a continuity. If you go back to the sciences, though, I particularly see your point in the sciences. I remember one of the peer-reviewed comments that I received on one of the papers I had published was expressly that. I think that I had included 6 or 7 references for a particular point, and the reviewer, his comment was making the point that there are another 11 or 12 that similarly support that statement and in which the same statement is made. So it was just this preponderance of citation. So I have seen that. It definitely exists in the sciences also.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's take this opportunity now to make sure we have everyone's final thoughts and shameless plugs addressed. So I will start with, let's see, Robert Johnson.
Well, if you guys like podcasts that are Masonic and you're watching this, check out Whence Came You Masonic Podcast, which is on Sunday nights at 9:30. I have an interview with Brother Mongelli about his book. You'll have to go back and look at our special guest section on the website, and you can check that out. It's a really good interview. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Anthony, because...
It's my pleasure.
Holy cow, man. The funniest thing, I have to tell you guys a quick story. When I met Anthony in person for the first time, it was at Pleiades Masonic Symposium last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we hung out, and we were talking, we ate together and everything. And before he presented, he talked about the circumpunction. Before he presented, he said, "Don't go telling everybody Anthony Mongelli says." Which was a brilliant way to start the presentation. But it was a phenomenal job. So if you guys ever get a chance to see Brother Mongelli present, please do it. He is phenomenal. And I just want to thank you again for coming on the show and really shedding some light on this issue. It's quite incredible where it went in the last 2 or 3 months. I've seen so much stuff.
Oh, yes.
In fact, yesterday somebody posted in a group, like, you may have seen it online if you guys are out there, like a poster type thing that had all these different... if you see it, you've seen it. I don't need to explain it, but it was kind of... It
Yes.
kind of attacked the idea of what we talked about tonight. So
Right.
Thank you again.
My pleasure. Honor entirely mine. And to see your smiling face again, wow.
It's a joy. Only mixed is better.
Alrighty, Brother Juan.
Well, I definitely enjoyed this episode. There definitely has to be another time we get a chance to talk a little bit more because there's so much to cover about this. One of the things that I wanted to mention, I greatly admire Brother Mongelli's work and the work of other brothers that take the time to uh, look at different sources and provide Masonic education, or at the very least, spark light, as we say. Get brothers out there with enough information to go on their own and build their own temple. There is no problem with self-publishing or creating books. If you're listening to this, don't be discouraged if you don't have a background, a scholarly background, or if you don't have a background in writing papers. But just know one thing: be specific. If you found the information in a source, give credit to the individuals that actually uh, did the work. If you're coming with a conjecture, if you're coming with an interpretation of what you're reading, let people know. The problem that we're having, and it's a very insidious problem, is that relating to the conversations we've been having on Facebook, is that there are people that go out there and with all the authority that they have acquired, they disseminate information that might be incorrect. And we have an incredible amount of young brothers that are thirsty for light, and seeing a person in a leadership position, giving them supposedly good light, are going to be led astray into incorrect information. So try to find light in the correct places, and hopefully we've gotten you another tool by presenting the books of Brother Mongelli. If you like podcasts and you like Masonic education, I invite you to go to thewindingstairs.com. I have an episode coming up that is going to be really, really good. Just to give you a benefit of watching the Masonic Roundtable, it's going to be about ritual. You don't want to miss that episode. So go to thewindingstairs.com. And last but not least, I wanted to show something very quick. I gave a little preview about this today on the Winding Stairs Freemasonry group.
What is that, Juan?
This right here is one of 7 works of art that I have created representing the liberal arts and sciences. This one in particular is about astronomy, and this is an original work of art. And I own this one, which is astronomy. And we have several other ones floating around the country. You have Brother John right there.
Oh my goodness! Hey, look.
Which one do you have?
I have geometry.
Geometry.
And I've got music right here.
I got music.
I got rhythm.
I'm not joining in, sorry.
I got my piece of Juan's artwork. Who could ask for anything more?
But brothers, but the reason I show this to you is because this was, each one of the brothers of the Masonic Roundtable has one of the originals. They only were together here. We'll talk about them a little bit later on in another episode. But I created those with the Masonic Roundtable in mind. We will begin selling those through the freemasonryart.com. You can get a print, and it helps support the Masonic Roundtable. So if you like what we do here, consider going to freemasonryart.com and getting your copy of any of your favorite. Right now, the only 5 that are going to be available within the next couple of weeks are going to be the 5 that we own personally, and more details will come later.
Good.
Oh, you have to use promo code TMR so that I know that you heard about it here on the Masonic Roundtable.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Juan. We'll definitely share that link out to the Facebook page and Twitter and all that as more news becomes available.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your talents, Juan.
My pleasure.
Let's move to Nick Johnson. Final thoughts, shameless plugs.
Sure. Final thought. I really like that, Brother Anthony, that you separate the idea that you can have an opinion and be focused on opinions, while at the same time also having scholarly work. Sometimes they can converge, but it's not necessary one or the other. As a blogger, yeah, I kind of just write opinions and then hyperlink stuff because that's what we do. And you know what? It's all good. But
Cited.
no, yeah, exactly. Hey, there's a citation. It's
There's
blue.
a
So
citation.
there
It's
you
a
go.
source.
Boom. Direct source right there to Wikipedia, which is truth.
Truthiness.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I really like that distinction between the two. That really helps out a lot. You can find my blog. I am continuing on my weekly journey to give you content because I love all of you, including you. Yes, you, right there. So yeah, this week was a post about an interesting find that I found a set of principles that the Scottish Rite during the 1920s they had almost a mission statement of almost political points. I mean, if you read it, it's very interesting. So come to my blog, millennialfreemason.com, 2 L's, 2 N's, and it's really been a lot of conversation, a lot of very interesting questions on Masonic organizations and social change, and so it's been very fascinating. You can also find me on reddit.com/r/Freemasonry or /r/York Rite or /r/Scottish Rite, where I mod all that stuff. I don't know why they picked me. I'm a dope. And finally, yeah, and then Juan, go to the Winding Stairs group because I'm also a mod on that too. Because I'm way too good at my job, a free job, and I'm going to start expecting payment soon. But we'll discuss it offline. And finally, I'm giving you all my second plug for helping me out jump in a frozen lake. That's me,
Polar
the scared
plunge.
little dude, on right there, polar plunge. I'm that scared little dude. I do not have the intrepid spirit like the other 5. I'm more like the dang it, I hope that they make a wake so I can follow behind them. So anyway, please donate if you can. I will again post my splash page or whatever they call them for donating. All the money goes to Special Olympics of Minnesota, and it's a really great cause. With that, thanks.
Thanks, Nick. Jason Richards.
Thanks, John. Hey, everybody, for Nick's Polar Plunge, we will post that up again on the show notes. So go to this episode, www.themasonicroundtable.com, and we will totally post that. You can take a look and donate there. My final thought for this episode, it's been a really, really great topic, and we've really only scratched the surface of it with the time we had tonight. I'd like to take it a step further. We've talked about Masonic research and print books, but whenever you talk about education, trying to build the volume of knowledge for the world of Freemasons and the Universal Brotherhood here, you've got thoughts and opinions and you've got information that you've got from other sources. Make sure you clearly delineate that. That's one of the things we do here on the show. First and foremost, the first thing that we say every single time is the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely those of the participants. And we've been very good about when we talk about things where we've done research, we actually go and say, you know what, I was reading in Manly P. Hall's book this. And that's our way of separating out our scholarly research from our experiential research. So go ahead and, if you're preparing presentations or if you're going to give a talk in Lodge, take some time and just think about, your analysis and where it came from. And then maybe put a little bit into your presentation or your talk about, this is how I formed this argument. And this is what I've been able to extrapolate from it. And I think you'll do yourself a favor because other brethren can come back behind you and repeat your experiments, as it were, by taking a look at your body of knowledge and then drawing their own conclusions, which may be different from yours. It doesn't matter. It's the discourse that counts. That's why the Masonic Roundtable is here. Thank you all so much for listening. 50 episodes in 50 weeks.
Woo!
That is pretty fantastic. So we haven't missed an episode yet, knock on wood. Thank you all. We are doing this because you guys are still here watching us and listening to us. And it's because of you that we're doing this, and we get such a kick out of messaging back and forth with you, getting your experiences online, and getting your feedback about what you'd like to see on the show and what you prefer to see in future episodes. So please keep that feedback coming. We love you all very much. Thank you so much. I've got a blog. It's down here. It is the 2-Foot Ruler, Masonry in Plain Language. It is my attempt to break down the complex ideas of Freemasonry into the most easily digestible, easily understandable terms, because Masonry is a fraternity built on guys that love philosophy, so try getting an easy answer from anybody. I'm also a regular contributor for the Midnight Freemasons. Go check them out. They are awesome. They're on Facebook. It's also www.midnightfreemasons.org. And come and catch me and John at Masonic Week. We'd love to see you.
Excellent. We'll let our special guest have a final wrap-up and conclusion. Worshipful
Thank you,
Anthony.
brother. Thank you, my brother. Again, just to summarize, opinion and analysis and interpretation is vitally important, because that is the synthesis of what typically, may just be dry information, right? It also is the key and the beginning of practice. Very important. But as Brother Jason said, and as I've stated earlier, when you're expressing opinion, it is vitally important to let others know that this is opinion. And when you give your opinions, something brought you to that opinion generally. Something you read, something you experienced. Giving us your opinions is how we know you, right? Because it's coming from you. But what is the basis of that opinion? How did you arrive there? And you should, when you offer research, for example, something that's very important is don't necessarily do it, in my opinion, with the goal of winning people to your side. It's not always about converting, because I think when you get into that mindset of I have to win people to my side, I have to bring you to my view, that's when ego enters, and that's when you now to really the benefits that you could get from things like peer review or editorial review or just general commentary on your work. You have to be open, to that change, because again, it's all in the interest. The I is put to the side, and it's about we, and it's about what we leave for those after us. I mean, I've seen some extraordinary claims lately without the extraordinary evidence, and I would also close with that the readership also has some level of responsibility, I would say. It's separating the wheat from the chaff, which sometimes can be hard. Somebody alluded to this. It may have been Brother Juan. You have hungry, younger, eager brothers who absorb things like sponges. Writers have some responsibility for what they put out there. That's important, but you cannot, I think, completely alleviate the responsibility of the reader to be critical. That's important as well. Yeah. Then again, we are here to contribute, hopefully, to the body of Masonic knowledge, and do it in a fashion that is not injurious. It's not full of ego, again, which will turn you away from the possibility that you might be wrong. Cite, research, go over it and go over it and go over it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it's certainly been an honor. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's been my honor, brothers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You definitely had a wealth of information to the topic tonight. I do want to say, again, a personal thank you. I learned so much from the research that you did in the selected symbols of the Entered Apprentice Degree, and it had really, as we talked in the green room, truly benefited my wisdom and knowledge of the circumpunct, which is my favorite Masonic symbol. And so it became a fascinating source of light and inspiration for me. And I definitely wanted to share a portion of the presentation that I built around that, where this was after reading your book. I found it kind of fascinating that even Homer Simpson himself decided to draw a picture of the circumpunct. He may or may not in the episode have been actually trying to copy his eye for an eye sticker. But nonetheless, I saw it for what it was, a true symbol of light and the divine. So I just wanted to share that with all our friends. And let's see. I'm glad you mentioned, about be critical. Be a critical reader. Anything that you do read, make sure you're not taking it on face value, and that you truly are understanding the sources and methods and knowledge that's behind that. Masonry is symbolic, meaning everything you see has a deeper meaning. So keep trying to dig deeper and find that further light.
So mote it be.
Absolutely. And the last thing I wanted to plug, Jason forgot to include the fact that for those who watch the YouTube video after it's gone live, and or listen to the podcast, you may hear some wonderful intro and outro music, and that is done by Brother Johnny Mack, who is in a new band called Fellowcraft. And for those in the DC area, they will be having a benefit show at the Alma Shrine in DC on 30th January. So that will also be the same day that Patriot Lodge will be hosting Charles M. Harper. But if you're not in the Clifton, Virginia area, but are in the DC area, definitely check out Fellowcraft at the Alma's Temple. Alrighty. With that, thank you all very much for contributing tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. And keep searching for more light. Have a good night.